Thank you so much for that kind introduction and the opportunity to be here today. I feel like I'm specifically and specially qualified to speak to you today, and it's for the following reason. Everything I know about district energy, I learned from Rob. So I feel like I am, as I said, uniquely qualified. This conference and the ideas behind it, as well as the ideas that will flow from it, couldn't be timelier. I say that because our country is navigating a period of profound change that's recasting the energy landscape in America and redefining our energy future. By all measures, the scope and pace of transformation in recent years has been remarkable and would have been almost unimaginable just a short time ago. Long gone is the old narrative about America's ever-declining energy production at home and ever-growing reliance on energy from abroad. Indeed, in a very short time, our country has moved from energy scarcity to energy renaissance. Take, for example, the fact that domestic oil production has surged to a 20-year high, while imports of foreign oil have fallen to the lowest level in 2 decades. When it comes to natural gas, the United States has emerged as the globe's leading producer of this resource. Energy efficiency, a long underutilized but critical and cost-effective tool, is making strides in our homes and businesses. And the new vehicles rolling off assembly lines today are more fuel efficient than ever. At the same time, renewables like wind and solar are growing so fast across the country, they seem to shatter industry records year after year after year. What's more, domestic greenhouse gas emissions have dropped to the levels not seen since the early 1990s. And just last week, the administration followed through on what you might describe as the crown jewel of the president's climate action plan. By proposing new standards that would slash carbon pollution from power plants by 30% by 2030, the United States has now taken one of the most significant steps any nation can take in response to the climate challenge. Taken alone, each of these trends I've mentioned is important, but taken together, they are remaking our energy sector in a way that benefits our national security and our foreign policy, strengthens our economy, and promotes the health of our communities and our climate. But in the midst of this sea change, something else is happening too. The end user is evolving. The passive consumer of energy is going extinct. They are being replaced by consumers, both individuals and businesses, who are much more engaged, more educated about how and where their energy comes from, and more environmentally conscious than ever before. And the growing number of these people who want more control and customization of their own energy consumption are helping to usher in an era of less centralized, more democratized energy. You know, I recently came across a story about how a number of apartment buildings in New York City have installed small helix-shaped turbines on top of their roofs to harvest energy from the wind. Now, as the article rightly pointed out, those tiny turbines might as well be pinwheels. After all, they only produce enough power to light the common areas of the building. So are they saving the planet? No, of course not, but that's not the point. The point was to get people curious and in the door, show them an apartment, and then spotlight all the features that actually made the building energy efficient, which the tenants clearly valued. So it was a win-win proposition. And more broadly, this newfound interest in customizing personal energy profiles helps to explain the rapid growth we've seen in distributed generation. And with it, the rise of smartphone apps and other gadgets that help manage and control energy use in our homes and businesses. This is the new world we live in, and it's incredibly dynamic. We have new energy policies coming online, new rules and regulations at the federal and state level that will impact the marketplace for years to come, and newly sophisticated energy consumers. But even within this time of transformation, it's worth bearing in mind that a great idea isn't necessarily a new one. It's just an idea whose time has come. And that brings me to district energy and CHP. Now, the concept of district energy is hardly new. In fact, it dates all the way back to the Roman Empire. And yet, despite its age, district energy remains an underdog. In some ways, it seems to be one of the best kept secrets in the energy world. I'd wager money that your average person wouldn't even know how to begin describing it. The bottom line is that district energy and combined heat and power don't get half the attention they deserve. You know this, of course, better than anybody. But I find all of this to be vexing and puzzling, and I'll tell you why. I've been working on energy policy ever since I graduated from college. Of course, I won't out myself and disclose when exactly that was, but suffice it to say, I've had enough time to work on many campaigns served several members of Congress, and most recently, President Obama. In all those roles, a major part of my job was to engage stakeholders, which necessarily means that I've met with people representing all kinds of sectors, companies, and technologies. And it means I've heard pitches from all sorts of solutions. For example, new strains of algae cooked up in the lab to power the cars of the future, devices that promise to slurp up crude oil out of seawater after spills, pre-combustion technologies to clean up coal plants at no extra cost, and clothing made with mini solar panels, and so on. But the case for CHP is among the most compelling I've heard for three overarching reasons: value, reliability, and efficiency. Let's begin with value. And perhaps I should preface this by just saying that we're not so good as a society at distinguishing price from value. In fact, we too often conflate the two terms when in reality they're quite different. Whereas price might be thought of as the plain and simple cost of something, value is much broader. It's a measure that incorporates the larger constellation of benefits that consumers get from something, say, a CHP system compared to an alternative. Now, this distinction is a tough one even for Congress. I would suggest that the reason we don't have a national energy and climate policy in this country is because Congress tends to focus much more on the price of the legislation as opposed to the overall value to the society, which perhaps, ironically, is a more expensive approach in the longer term. In any event, when it comes to CHP, there's no question it provides great value. A recent analysis done by ICF International examined the economics of installing new natural gas boilers and compared it with a CHP system sized to serve a medium to large institutional facility. While the upfront installation costs to the CHP system came with a higher price tag than the natural gas boilers, its value quickly became apparent. According to the analysis, the CHP system offered annual net savings of $2.4 million, which made the payback period less than 7 years. In other words, the system pays for itself relatively quickly and then continues to provide end users with significant savings each year. And that's to say nothing about the other benefits conferred in the form of less maintenance, the elimination of fuel deliveries, and even better use of valuable building space. Then there's the issue of reliability and resiliency. And here, I think one figure sums it up quite nicely: 99.999%. This number, as you know, corresponds to the reliability of most district energy systems today. It's about as close to perfect as you can get. And that high level of performance, which is appreciated by consumers, is obviously essential for critical facilities like hospitals, fire stations, police stations, and big data centers. So CHP and district energy have a lustrous appeal in this context. And you already have an incredible story to tell. Superstorm Sandy, one of the costliest and most destructive hurricanes in our history, brought the Northeast, including New York City, itself a symbol of American power and ingenuity, to its knees. In the city that never sleeps, darkness fell on 8.5 million people. Yet in few places, a few islands in the city, if you will, electricity kept flowing because of the technologies and the solutions that you all provide. And it made a world of difference. One co-op equipped with CHP was the only building on Lower Fifth Avenue to provide energy and full services to its residents, who were able to take in other friends and family members who weren't so lucky. At Salem Community College in New Jersey, the CHP system was a sole source of power during the storm, but it performed flawlessly and allowed the Red Cross to provide a comfortable shelter to dozens of families. Farther north in Connecticut, the town of Greenwich lost power for a week, but the local hospital was able to keep the lights on thanks to its CHP system. In fact, it was able to continue normal operations throughout the storm and take in patients that could not be admitted at other hospitals. These are powerful examples of how your solutions can provide power when people need it most. It's energy you can count on. All of you should feel enormously proud of that. And this industry must highlight those success stories at any and every opportunity because they will be remembered. Now, in addition to the value and impressive reliability of CHP systems, they also offer greater efficiency. In this regard, CHP stands above all its competitors. After all, the conventional power plant isn't exactly all that efficient. That's why the Obama administration has been focusing on doing what it can to put in place policies and incentives that can help modernize the power sector, which remains the largest source of domestic carbon pollution. In late 2011, for example, the president finalized the first ever national standards to reduce mercury pollution from power plants. Then came new standards to limit greenhouse gas emissions from newly constructed plants. And as I mentioned last week, EPA took the next logical step under the Clean Air Act by proposing new carbon emission standards that will apply to existing power plants. Today's conventional method of generating heat and power separately has a combined efficiency of around 45%, so not really anything to write home about. In comparison, by capturing the heat that would otherwise be lost and then putting it to productive use, CHP systems can reach a much higher level of operational efficiency in the ballpark of 75 to 80%. That means two things. First, it saves user money, and second, it provides an immediate path for business, universities, hospitals, and other facilities to shrink their carbon footprint. What's more, and this goes directly to what I mentioned before about the evolving end user, district energy is highly flexible and can be tailored to fit individual needs. That's critical as our system becomes more and more decentralized, and because what works great here in Washington State may not be ideal in Arizona or Iowa or Florida. In terms of the fuel source, natural gas may be the obvious answer in one location, while biomass makes the most sense someplace else. These variables may differ even within the confines of a single community. It's precisely because district energy has the ability to accommodate these regional and customer preferences while maintaining a high level of reliability that makes it more attractive than ever before. So even though there may be a sense right now that CHP technologies aren't getting their due, I suspect that will change moving forward as the public becomes more aware of the value, the amazing reliability, and the efficiency. But everyone in this room has to be part of the solution. Educate the press, educate Congress, educate your state houses, bring officials to your facilities, and show them what's possible. Show them what you do every day to power our communities with clean, affordable energy. And I will add that you have the potential to build the kind of broad coalition that is powerful and multifaceted enough to become a formidable advocate for better policy. It's a group, as I envision it, that includes businesses, both big and small, critical facilities of all stripes, colleges and universities, environmental groups, labor, as well as elected officials at all levels of government who've already seen the promise of district energy in their own backyard. That coalition would be a force to be reckoned with in Washington. And even in a time when Congress is mired in gridlock and dysfunction, making the investment in building partnerships today is only going to help you tomorrow. The question then becomes, what's the best way to break through the logjam and tackle some of the systemic barriers that prevent more widespread deployment of district energy technologies? Naturally, the answer to that question depends on where you are advocating for change. At the federal level, unless you're Frank Underwood in House of Cards, and maybe you can recruit him to your cause, I think that'd be quite the catch. These days, policy tends to move through Congress at a glacial pace, if at all. You probably heard that in May, the bipartisan Shaheen-Portman legislation aimed at increasing energy efficiency in homes and buildings perished in the Senate. We saw that result despite widespread bipartisan support for the provisions in the bill, which by all counts were tame and sensible steps in the right direction. But this just gives you a sense of the dysfunction in Congress. Now, on the other side of Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C., there's a different situation. Painfully aware that Congress lacks ambition and cognizant of his short time left in the Oval Office, the president is eager to claim what victories he can, especially when it doesn't require legislation. In fact, using existing legal authorities within the federal agencies to impact policy will be the theme and variation of the next 2 years. So to the extent that there's something the administration can do independently that would benefit your industry and allow the president to talk about his all-of-the-above energy strategy and the importance of tackling climate change, make sure it's articulated to the administration. I can't emphasize that enough. You know, a few years ago, shortly after the administration finalized the first round of fuel economy standards for light-duty vehicles, something unexpected happened. Leaders from across the trucking industry reached out to us and expressed interest in similar standards for heavy-duty vehicles. From our perspective, it was yet another opportunity to spur innovation in the transportation sector and reduce our dependence on oil. From their perspective, the regulatory certainty and uniformity meant they could invest in advanced vehicle technologies with greater confidence. That sparked the beginning of a dialogue that culminated in the first ever national fuel economy standards for heavy-duty vehicles. And it was something we were able to achieve without a vote in Congress, even though we were proud to highlight the bipartisan support of the outcome. A nice reminder that progress often starts without a conversation. It often starts with a conversation. But at this moment in time, the most important issue on the regulatory front has to be the Clean Power Plan announced last week by the Environmental Protection Agency, which for the first time cuts carbon pollution from existing power plants. And while I will spare you by not diving into the weeds of the 645-plus page proposal right now, let me say I believe it has the potential to make district energy and CHP a much bigger force across the country. Even more broadly, as the world prepares for the next round of international climate negotiations in 2015, the administration plans sends a strong and unmistakable message to other countries about our commitment to climate change. And American leadership in this space may have a beneficial spillover effect in the countries around the world. Here are the top 4 things to know about the proposed plan. 1, it fights climate change. It will cut carbon pollution from the power sector 30% by 2030. 2, it protects public health. Power plants are the largest source of carbon pollution in the United States. Although there are limits for other pollutants like arsenic and mercury, there are currently no national limits on carbon. Americans will see significant public health and climate benefits now and for future generations. 3, it's about states leading with proven approaches. States and businesses have already charted a course toward cleaner, more efficient power. The plan doesn't prescribe, instead, it propels ongoing progress. 4, it's designed to be malleable and put states in the driver's seat. With EPA's flexible proposal, states choose the ways we cut carbon pollution so we can still have affordable, reliable power to grow our economy. The proposal is now out for public comment for 120 days. As I review the proposal, I truly believe it could be a breakout moment and one of the most significant federal actions to create markets for district energy. After all, as the power sector transforms to become more efficient in the years ahead, you are ready right now to deliver efficient, reliable electricity and do so at a great value for the consumer. Did the agency get everything in the proposal perfect? No. And I suspect there are going to be some tweaks and modifications that as members of IDEA you will want to see. So another bit of free advice, engage the agency and help them understand your viewpoint. You're pushing on an open door with this administration because they value the role you play and understand well how you can be on the front lines in helping states comply with the emissions reductions. They will be keen to hear what improvements can and should be made before they finalize the rule next June. Outside of the regulatory context, the federal government is working in other ways to expand the role of CHP, particularly in light of what we learned from Hurricane Sandy. As part of the administration's rebuilding strategy report, 2 recommendations were made to bolster CHP. 1, direct recovery investments in resilient energy infrastructure, and 2, promote better state and federal coordination to improve electric grid policies and standards. That brings me to what's happening at the state level, and frankly, it's going to be the new center of gravity on climate issues for the next few years. This is true even though states face some similar challenges as the federal government, namely tight budgets and attacks on clean energy incentives, but there's a key difference. That is, it's much harder for state and local officials to deny the benefits of clean energy, whether it's wind or solar or biofuels or CHP, when it's located in their community and employing people they represent. But even more importantly, states just have more policy levers to work with than the federal government. With respect to EPA's carbon pollution standard, implementation will ultimately be in the hands of each state. Moreover, a total of 47 states across the country have demand-side efficiency programs, and 38 states now have renewable portfolio standards. I recognize that those policies are not always responsive to the unique challenges facing your industry that prevent more widespread CHP deployment. At the same time, and I think you'll agree, it's been encouraging to see a handful of state leaders stepping up and trying to figure out ways to promote district energy. Governor Cuomo's announcement early last year of $20 million for clean energy projects, including CHP, that provide continuous power and heat during grid outages was a great step forward. New Jersey's also now investing in CHP to improve grid reliability. Increasingly, other states are going to follow too. Honestly, I can't underscore enough what an opportunity I see for you on the climate adaptation agenda. Most states don't know what it is or how to define what's important. In many instances, they don't even know what the technologies are. They just know they want reliable energy. And that's where you can come in, not just in terms of defining what's possible, but actually providing the solutions. The task moving forward is to make sure the projects that receive funding become success stories that you make sure everyone knows about. So schedule those meetings with state and federal decision makers, get the community involved, hold ribbon cutting ceremonies, take credit shamelessly. Because the more examples you have to point to that embody how district energy is reliable, efficient, and a great value, the more your success will snowball. And you'll have much more leverage to bring about the policy changes that this industry hopes to achieve. Truthfully, I think this industry is on an upswing. As Churchill famously said, you can always count on America to do the right thing after they've tried everything else. Well, we may very well look back in a few years after we've made great progress with district energy and wonder why the heck it wasn't always our default. But we'll get there. We'll keep building a cleaner, more sustainable energy economy. And look, I'm no Warren Buffett, but I wouldn't go long on investments that are carbon intensive. I'd go long on clean energy. I'm bullish on low carbon technology. Why? One reason is because we are already beginning to feel the consequences of climate change, rising sea levels, more frequent wildfires, record droughts. Go visit California. Mother Nature doesn't care whether you're a Democrat or Republican or if you believe in climate change. It's irrelevant because we're all going to be facing these changes together in the years ahead. And it turns out those changes are pretty costly to our economy, our environment, and our health. The upshot? The private sector sees the writing on the wall, and major publicly traded companies across the country are pricing in the cost of carbon when they make business decisions. Google uses a carbon price of $30 per metric ton, while Disney uses an estimate between $10 and $20. ExxonMobil sets a much higher price at $60 per metric ton. And companies aren't just talking the talk. Walmart, for example, has several hundred renewable energy projects in operation or under development all around the globe. This isn't just happening to make employees feel good. No, it's happening because clean energy is a sound investment and helps businesses become more competitive. But if I may, what's most exciting to me about district energy is the picture it paints of the city of the future. Imagine a community with a mature district energy system that can serve every industrial, commercial, and residential building in the entire system. It's a system that's powered by local and highly sustainable sources of energy. Its reliability rivals a Swiss timepiece, even in the face of punishing storms. Its efficiency has a symbiotic effect on the local economy and the health and welfare of the people who live there. And at some point, the district energy system becomes so well integrated that it becomes part and parcel of what makes the city so eminently livable. I can certainly get on board with this, and I think a lot of other people will too. Thank you.